So today I'd like to read to you a story called A Bad Case of the Stripes by David Shannon. So we're going to open it up and we're going to take a look. Camilla Cream loved lima beans, but she never ate them. All of her friends hated lima beans, and she wanted to fit in. Camilla was always worried about what other people thought of her. Today, she was fretting even more than usual. It was the first day of school, and she couldn't decide what to wear. There were so many people to impress. She tried on 42 outfits, but none seemed quite right. She put on a pretty red dress and looked in the mirror, and then she screamed. So she wants to impress, means she wants people to notice how nice she looks. So she's trying on a lot of outfits. Sound familiar, Charlie? Someone else like to try on a lot of outfits before school in the morning?
No.
Oh, no? You don't put on one outfit and then I come to get you and you're wearing something else? You don't do that?
Not anymore, I used to.
Her mother ran into the room and she screamed too. Oh my heavens, she cried. You're completely covered with stripes. This was certainly true. Camilla was striped from head to toe. She looked like a rainbow. Mrs. Cream felt Camilla's forehead. Do you feel all right, she asked. I feel fine, Camilla answered, but just look at me. You get back in bed this instant, her mother ordered. You're not going to school today. Camilla was relieved. She didn't want to miss the first day of school, but she was afraid of what the other kids would say, and she had no idea what to wear with those crazy stripes. So here she is with her crazy stripes. That afternoon, Mr. Bumble came to examine Camilla. He came to look at her to see what was going on. Most extraordinary, he exclaimed. I've never seen anything like it. Are you having any coughing, sneezing, runny nose, aches, pains, chills, hot flashes, dizziness, drowsiness, shortness of breath, and uncontrollable twitching? No, Camilla told him. I feel fine. Well then, Dr. Bramble said, turning to Mrs. Cream, I don't see any reason why she shouldn't go to school tomorrow. Here's some ointment that should help clear up those stripes in a few days. If it doesn't, you know where to reach me. And he went off. So she's been told she can go to school with stripes. The next day was a disaster. Everyone at school laughed at Camilla. They called her Camilla Crayon, the Night of the Living Lollipop. She tried her best to act as if it were normal, but when the class said the Pledge of Allegiance, her stripes turned red, white, and blue. She even broke out into stars. What is going on? The other kids thought this was great. One yelled out, let's see some purple polka dots. Sure enough, Camilla turned all purple polka dotty. Someone else shouted, checkerboard, and a pattern of squares covered her skin. Soon everyone was calling out different shapes and colors, and poor Camilla was changing faster than you could change channels on a TV. That night, Mr. Harms, the school principal, called. I am sorry, Mrs. Cream, he said. I'm going to have to ask you to keep Camilla home from school. She's just too much of a distraction, and I've been getting calls from all the other parents. They're afraid those stripes might be contagious. Camilla was so embarrassed. She couldn't believe that 2 days ago everyone liked her. Now nobody wanted to be in the same room with her. Her father tried to make her feel better. Is there anything I can get you, sweetheart? He asked. No, thank you, sighed Camilla. What she really wanted was a nice plate of lima beans, but she had been laughed at enough for one day. So Camilla likes lima beans, and she's craving lima beans, but at the beginning of the story, it did say that she liked them, and she loved them, but she never ate them because her friends didn't eat them. So she really likes the lima beans, but because her friends don't like them, she's not eating them. Well, yes, I see, Dr. Bramble mumbled when Mr. Cream phoned the next day. I think I better bring in the specialist. We'll be right over. And an hour later, Dr. Bramble arrived with 4 people in long white coats. He introduced them to the Creams. This is Dr. Group, Dr. Sponge, Dr. Cricket, and Dr. Young. Then the specialist went to work on Camellia. They squeezed and jabbed, tapped and tested. It was very uncomfortable. Well, it's not the mumps, concluded Dr. Group. Or the measles, said Dr. Sponge. Definitely not chicken pox, put in Miss Dr. Cricket. Or sunburn, said Dr. Young. Try these, said the specialist. They handed her a bottle filled with different colored pills. Take one of each before bed, said Dr. Croup. Then they filed out the door, followed by Dr. Bumble. So there she is, going to all the specialists, all the doctors, telling her what she should do. But by now, the TV news had found out about Camellia. Reporters from every channel were outside her house, telling the story of the bizarre case of the incredible changing kid. Soon a huge crowd was camped out on the front lawn. Everybody wanted to see Camellia. They wanted to see her stripes. Here, let me see if I can do this. There's the page. The Creams were swamped. Here, I'm still learning to do this, so here we go. The Creams were swamped with all kinds of remedies from psychologists, allergists, herbalists, nutritionists, psychics, an old medicine man, a guru, even a veterinarian. Each so-called cure only added to poor Camelia's strange appearance until it was hard to even recognize her. She sprouted roots and berries and crystals and feathers and a long furry tail, but nothing worked. Look at poor Camellia. Here we go. She's sprouting out. There's her tail, right here. Over here, here's her tail. And she's got sprouts. So obviously the medicine that the doctors gave her did not work. Here we go. One day, a woman who called herself an environmental therapist claimed she could cure Camellia. Close your eyes, she said. Breathe deeply and become one with your room. I wish you hadn't said that, Camellia groaned. Slowly, she started to melt into the walls of her room. Her bed became her mouth. Her nose was a dresser, and 2 paintings were her eyes. The therapist screamed and ran from the house. What are we going to do? Cried Mrs. Cream. It just keeps getting worse and worse, and she began to sob. She began to cry. See, she's become one with her room. Her eyes are in the windows. You see that, Charlie?
Yeah.
Her lips are the bed. Where's her nose? On the dresser. At that moment, Mr. Cream heard a quiet knock at the front door. He opened it, and there stood an old woman who was just as plump and sweet as a strawberry. Excuse me, she said brightly, but I think I can help. So she's going to help them. She went into Camelia's room and looked around. My goodness, she said, with a shake of her head, what we have here is a bad case of stripes, one of the worst I've ever seen. And she pulled a container of small green beans from her bag. Are those magic beans? Asked Mrs. Cream. Oh, my, no, replied the old woman. There's no such thing. These are just plain old lima beans. I bet you'd like some, wouldn't you? She asked Camellia. Camellia wanted a big, heaping plateful of lima beans more than just about anything, but she was still afraid to admit it. Yuck, she said. Nobody likes lima beans, especially me. Oh, dear, the old woman said sadly. I guess I was wrong about you. She put the beans back in her bag, and started to walk to the door. Camellia watched the old woman walk away. Those beans would taste so good, and being laughed at for eating them was nothing compared to what she was going through. She finally couldn't stand it. Wait, she cried. The truth is, I really love lima beans. I thought so, said the old woman with a smile. She took a handful of beans and popped them into Camelia's mouth. Mmm, said Camellia. Ooh, there's the page.
So look at me.
Oh, look, she's putting the beans in her mouth. Charlie. Listening to the story. Suddenly, the branches, feathers, and squiggly tails began to disappear. Then the whole room swirled around. When it stopped, there stood Camellia, and everything went back to normal. I'm cured, she shouted. Yes, said the old woman. I knew the real you was in there somewhere. She patted Camellia on the head. Then she went outside and vanished into the crowd. And now Camelia's cured from eating lima beans. Here's Camellia. Afterward, Camellia wasn't quite the same. Some of the kids at school said she was weird, but she didn't care. She ate all the lima beans she wanted, and she never even had a touch of the stripes again. So the eating lima beans cured her stripes.